All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Quasar QUA-NOLOGY, the podcast that reviews every chronological appearance of your favorite cosmic-powered Avenger, Quasar. I'm your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of Quas-Overs.
Yes, Quas-Overs. It's been a while
Yeah.
since we've done any Quas-Overs, but in this episode, we're going to talk about Alpha Flight 99 and 100. And Thor number 437. These are both from 1991. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
this was an interesting time.
These are interesting issues, to say the least.
Yes,
We're kind of jumping in the middle of an arc, actually the end of an arc for Alpha Flight, right?
True. It's part 3 and 4 of a 4-part arc.
Yeah. So, but
And-
I feel like you can kind of get the gist of what's going on.
Yeah.
Just
And the
from
thing
these two
is
issues.
I was a little
but-
bit worried because when Quasar first shows up, he makes it seem like he's already been there for a while. But I went back and checked number 98, and he's only on the final splash page. So we didn't miss much if you didn't read number 98, you know?
Right. It's not like his wrist was in the corner of a panel or anything.
Exactly. No. He had a full splash page. I'm saying it's not like we missed a whole story, right? Like you don't need to read 98. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So, yeah. So anyway, okay. So number 99 of Alpha Flight. Now, for those that don't know, this series started in the early 80s by John Byrne. He did about, I think it was 28 issues. Got bored with the characters. Oh, first he killed off Guardian / Vindicator, then left, and then it kind of sputtered around kind of directionless for a long time after that, like 6 years. And this is like the home stretch because I think it was canceled with number 130. In this storyline, I think it was around 89 was where James Hudson came back. So this is Guardian back to his previous name, Vindicator, because his wife is now Guardian. He's got a costume that's the reverse color scheme, which doesn't quite gel. It doesn't look right.
No, it's a little strange.
Yeah, it just doesn't look right. Like if it's red against white, it looks right. If it's white against red, it doesn't look good. But anyway, okay. So basically, we open up here with some cool narration. By the way, the writer here is Fabian Nicieza, and the
I
artist
thought
is
maybe
Michael
we could
K.
talk about the cover real quick.
Oh yeah,
because this is a really cool cover visually. We have like Galactus's face in the background, and he's kind of like emerging from this star field. But what caught my eye, I thought it was a little strange, was the tagline for this issue, which was 500,000 aliens, a dozen Avengers, 2 scantily clad interstellar she-warriors. But wait, there's more.
Kind of idiotic, eh?
Yeah, what were they thinking?
But you know what's even more shocking is I seem to remember reading that it was always the editor that wrote the cover copy, but the editor is actually a woman, Bobby Chase. So maybe she was kind of making a joke,
Interesting.
like
Maybe
mocking these characters. Yeah.
Because it is strange. It's also not even like regular characters on Alpha Flight. I feel like they kind of have minor roles in this story. It's a little strange.
There's also another reference to physique later on, but we'll talk about that later.
Right.
The other thing I want to say is this cover is by Jackson Guise, but it looks like Mike Mignola, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. It feels like a classic cover to me.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't love it, but it's pretty good. Oh, and by the way, before we go forward, Josh, I want to point out your microphone sounds really far away. Is it going to record that way, or is it just
interesting?
Yeah, it sounds like it's
possibly
not your good mic.
That is strange because I think I only have the one mic. Let me turn this around real quick.
Okay.
Does
Same. Yeah.
Okay, how about this? Or is this better?
Same.
That's so weird. I did the test recording and it sounded okay. Let me check Skype is using the right microphone.
Okay.
Maybe that is what's weird. Headset. Oh. Yeah, that is strange. It did switch over. Let me see. How is that? That's better? That's so weird.
Okay, so I'm going to put my hand up like this.
Okay, yeah. We'll do a quick clap just so I can see the audio spike. Okay,
I'm just going to put a note.
Let me...
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just adjusting my volume actually down a little bit so that way it's not blasting. But I connected my controller, my gaming controller, over the weekend, and for some reason Skype decided to take the microphone on my controller as the default microphone.
I mean, okay.
For some reason.
Here's the thing. Do you want to redo the intro and just cut in the conversation about the cover?
Sure.
Only because I always think, like, if someone
the intro, right,
tunes in and they hear bad audio, they might not listen.
No, my OBS is still picking up this microphone.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
then.
so
That's
it's just
fine.
the Skype backup.
Okay, so then I put a note here that you can cut that part out, but we'll just keep going from where we left off.
Sounds good.
Here, actually, I'll put it right now just so I don't forget.
Okay.
It's actually not. It's it's 6:46. Okay, just a minute. Okay, ready?
1 second. Okay.
Okay. All right. So now we're gonna jump in, and we're already in. Okay. So basically, we're again, like we pointed out, we're in the middle of a story, but her is kind of talking with these aliens. And we're in the middle of a story, but it turns out that this whole civilization of aliens is based on...
This is Nova, right? At this point?
I say, oh, that's right. Yeah. This is Nova. You're right. And she's encountered a race of aliens whose existence is basically evading Galactus.
Mm-hmm.
And so while she's there talking to them, she's like, you never took it into account the possibility that Galactus could home in directly on his herald. And that's a little bit of quick foreshadowing, because on the next panel or next page, we see that now Galactus is there. So we see a giant figure of Galactus kind of floating over the planet. Then we cut back over to Toronto. Now, we've read a lot of comic books in our day, but it is pretty cool to see Toronto portrayed in a comic book, right?
Yeah, it is. It is kind of, because I feel like when you live in New York, you're reading about these stories every day, it must feel kind of interesting to see the characters, exactly where you live. So having it set in Toronto is really cool.
Yeah, Toronto. It's funny. It just doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then we get our first appearance of Quasar in the issue. So they're in the middle of battling this kind of alien invasion, and then Quasar is thinking to himself, this battle has escalated into a real war. I'm the appointed protector of the universe. How can I reconcile that with all this carnage? Now, the first thing I notice here, Josh, is different voice for Quasar. Like, that doesn't seem like Mark Grenwald's Quasar. What do you think?
I think in pretty much all 3 issues that we're going to be talking about, it feels a little off, everything about him. Maybe a little bit less in the Thor issue, because it's a bit more of like a goofy story, and Quasar himself is kind of goofy and dorky. Mm-hmm. But here it just feels off. Like he feels like a soldier or like a space cadet or something, and that's just not who he is. So yeah, agreed.
So yeah, they're in the middle of this big battle, and then Captain America is kind of taking charge of helping protect these civilians. She touches base with what's her name, Heather Hudson, and she kind of reports in, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with the situation. Then we cut back over to her. And, she's having a conversation with Quasar. So I was, again, like you said earlier, I was worried we were just going to see Quasar's wrist in this issue, but he actually is involved in the action, right? And then we see Hercules in there. And then now Quasar is, kind of commenting on the battle that's going on. And then this is that scene where he's like, better just concentrate on stopping this assault and protecting innocents and not notice the legs on her, which Quasar has done before, because when Quasar met, I think it was Infinity. Eternity's sister
Oh,
Infinity.
yeah.
He's like, oh, I better not notice that she's got a hot body. And he's basically talking about a god. So it's just kind of funny, but whatever, I guess it's supposed to show that he's kind of young and not
Yeah.
impetuous, but,
Yeah.
he's like barely out of teenhood.
It's a little strange, I think, but because I feel like they're like in the middle of battle. You know what I mean?
I know, right.
If it was supposed to be, like, if this line was in the issues with her trying to marry Quasar, like where he's trying, the story's about him kind of like, no, I don't want to be with her. I don't even want to look at her. It would kind of make sense, but it feels just strange in this one. Like, I don't know. Because I feel like he's not even really portrayed as like this angsty teen in Quasar.
No, he's not. Right.
He doesn't really have moments like this. So,
well, I mean, we can't expect the writers to read every single comic in Marvel, but it is awkward when you're going to use a character and the characterization seems off. But it's okay. It's not terrible.
I wonder though, like they don't discuss crossovers.
Think that it would take a quick 5-minute phone call to Mark Grenwald, and he could say, actually, like it's almost like the writers of the books should just go in and just fix up the dialogue themselves. Why not, right?
And at the time, for sure, they were all working in the same place. I would assume in like an office building somewhere.
No.
Okay.
The editors would. And to be fair, Mark Grenwald was an editor. But Fabian Nicieza, at this time, he was not an editor, so he would have been working from home, as far as I know. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I was not there, but that's as far as I know. Anyway,
but it would make sense to do the writers because, like, it works in the movies really well. I feel like in Infinity War and Endgame, those are directed and written by the Russo brothers, or maybe not fully written, but they have James Gunn.
Yes.
There to help to write the dialogue for the Guardians, so they have the same language and voice and feel to them.
Which is why the Guardian scenes are so funny, right?
Right, and
I love them in the Avengers.
So
movies,
so it's not only the characters, like the actors themselves being the character, but James Gunn in those moments, he's as much the characters as the actors are. I feel like.
Yep. 100%. I agree.
And you can see that even with Taika Waititi and Thor.
Yeah.
Like Thor is a completely different character in Ragnarok and Love and Thunder than in Thor and The Dark World.
Oh, that's obvious. 100%.
You know what I mean? Like so there's like different languages here. So it could definitely work, I think, with the comics to kind of have this intermingling and if you're gonna force this connectivity in the comics, I think you got to do it right.
Yeah, just take an extra 5 minutes. Just call the guy, right? The writer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then we get the next scene, which is one of the weirdest, most standout scenes in the book. So this is a woman. Who is this? Diamond Lil?
Oh, this here. Yes, so this is Diamond Lil.
This is weird. So she basically gets shot at by this alien. Then she hunts him down. And she basically says, I need a gun. I'm going to take your gun. And he's like, but you can't because it's bio-cybernetically attached to my body and mind. And she's like, so? And he's like, well, if you remove it without proper procedures, it would kill me. And she's like, okay, well, what's the proper procedure? And he's like, well, basically she's like, you have to like do an operation. And he's like, idiot, I need a gun. What are you forcing me to do to get it? Like, okay, Fabian Nicieza, this is kind of weird, right? But
it's very strange. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it stood out, but it's an interesting scene. I'll say that. So then we cut away to space. And this is where now Galactus, we're back on the planet where Galactus is talking to the aliens that have dedicated their lives to avoiding him. A little bit of that. We cut back and the Avengers and Alpha Flight are dealing with this. Or no. Yeah, this is back at the same place.
Yeah, they're again just kind of, I think, fighting at this point.
Fighting these aliens.
Yeah.
And then
everybody kind of regroups at this point.
Yeah. Oh, and this is where Diamond Lil comes back.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, and they're like, where you been? He's like, I had a problem getting something to cut through my skin to do a biopsy on my tumor. I'm sorry for bugging out on you, but I had to. And they're like,
Oh, okay.
okay.
That's good.
And they kind of just move on to the next thing. So just a weird scene. I don't know this character at all, Diamond Lil. So
Yeah, and she says that she has a tumor, and they haven't been able to find anything that can pierce her skin, so they can operate on the tumor, which is why she was so interested in this gun, I guess. That's an interesting subplot, but it's weird that they wrote it where, sorry, I've got to kill you for this gun. It's like,
yeah,
it seems so strange. Maybe that's what her character is. Like, she is this more like anti-hero that's okay with killing people, but it did feel out of place in this comic, I'd say.
Definitely, yeah, definitely strange, but unique, interesting. And then, okay, so then basically we get a sequence that I skipped completely because I don't give a crap. It's the origin of her. Or no, she explains
why the consortium is after her. So essentially what it is she after everything that happened with her origin, and then I think getting like rejected by him, she's trying to find herself. So she goes to this random planet. She realizes that these people are kind of suffering. So she helps them along. She teaches them, and she, creates farms with them in this like little society. And then the consortium comes, and they're pissed because apparently the consortium is like a business more than anything. And they've made a deal with this planet to supply them with things. But now that they're kind of self-sufficient and they've advanced further than what the consortium wanted them to, and they've infringed on their contract, they're after her. So she flies to Earth to get help from the Avengers, but little did she know that they were going to follow her there and just attack the city.
Right. So then, okay, now we have to point out, this is where it gets a little even weirder. So James Hudson was Vindicator. Then he changed his name to Guardian. Then in Alpha Flight number 12, something went wrong with his like suit, and it blew up and killed him instantly. Now, I don't know if you've ever read that story.
No.
So,
but I have heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was shocking at the time because he was like the first character from Alpha Flight introduced in X-Men. He was the leader. He was the most popular guy. And then just to shake things up, John Byrne killed him off. And it was kind of one of those things where everyone was like, okay, but when are you going to bring him back? And he just never did. But then finally he did come back, maybe about a year before this. And in this issue, we find out, I believe this is where they reveal that this kind of twist on what's been happening. But at this point in the story, it's kind of like his suit is sort of taken over, or it takes over him. And he starts to talk like a computer, like this unit is instructed to remove agents from Terran sphere. And so he teleports half of Alpha Flight and half of the Avengers away from where they are. Oh, because the aliens were threatening them, basically saying, we're going to take her, right?
Yeah, they say you have to hand her over and we could take her away and we won't take over the Earth. But if you refuse, we're going to take over the entire Earth, not just destroy Toronto. So,
so then they disappear.
Yeah, random. This is like unrelated to that. They're kind of deciding on what's going to happen. Her's like, I'm going to go. And then they're kind of like going back and forth. And then all of a sudden, Vindicator just snaps and starts like, electricity starts shooting from him. And he turns into this like robotic version of himself and transports him and half of the team away somewhere else. Right.
They disappear. And then the one alien that was doing the negotiating is now really pissed.
Yeah.
How dare you disrupt a consortium negotiation, right? So he's all angry. So now he's like, we will now commence a full-scale corporate takeover of your world's assets. Then we cut away to interdimensional space, and we find out where everyone teleported to. They're now on the planet with her. No, with Nova.
Yeah, with Nova and the jellyfish people.
And the jellyfish people were Galactus is. And so the cliffhanger is that now they're confronting Galactus, and it says to be concluded.
Mm-hmm. The
end of the issue. So before we jump to 100, I'll just say this issue, so considering it's the middle of a storyline, I thought it was pretty good. I've always been a fan of Fabian Nicieza, so I thought the dialogue was pretty good. The artwork was by Michael Bair, was definitely solid, but I've always found him kind of unremarkable. Like he's really good. He's a very realistic artist, but kind of lacks flair and kind of lacks style, in my opinion.
Yeah, so at times the characters feel a little flat because they're not doing anything too dynamic. Like here, they're kind of just standing there. Like they were all just zapped away, and they're just like neutral.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Like, but no body language, right? No.
Yeah. Yeah. But the oh.
Whoops. I hope that saves. Anyway, no, I was trying to quit out of programs to kind of just like save memory, but I accidentally quit out of this.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, so we'll just start recording right there.
Yeah.
Here's another 6 point. We'll call this part 3. Is it recording? Yep. Part 3. Ooh, that was a bad one. Okay. Okay, so I'll just pick up. Oh, you were talking about the art, the body language.
Yeah, it's the body language just feels a little flat. For considering, sometimes they've just been like stranded here on this planet, and they feel like not very dynamic at times. But the art itself is, I think, pretty solid. Like the faces, I think, are really strong at times. Like Puck looks very good. Like that looks like a human that he's based the face off of. Like
yes.
Like I can almost picture in my head the actor that is portraying this character, because it's, I think, so detailed and consistent. So yeah, I think I did enjoy the art. The story, I think, I was a little bit worried when I read this issue, because I thought that it was going to be this. It felt like a big mess. And I didn't feel like these two things were related at all. And I was just, and again, it could be because we're jumping in partway through, but just reading this issue, I was like, it was fine, but I really hope that they find some way to tie this up and tie this all together. And luckily they find a clever way to tie these two subplots together in the next issue. And I think it made this one a little bit better for me.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I think especially for all of these characters that are in this story, it's not bad.
I guess for me, well, and I can say more about this when we review number 100, but if I'm coming into an Alpha Flight story that's culminating in the 100th issue, I'm not sure why we need to see the Avengers and Galactus. So we have a Fantastic Four villain mixed with the Avengers. I'd rather see an Alpha Flight, character or long-running subplot or something. So in that sense, it's kind of just a generic Marvel book.
Yeah, that I totally get that. Maybe even just one crossover to make it like an event. Like Quasar actually, I think, fits well. There's an alien invasion happening, right? So he would have been notified and would have gone there to help. Yeah, do all of the Avengers need to be here? Maybe not, but yeah, I wish I would have gotten to know Puck a little bit more, or what's the Sasquatch's name?
Sasquatch?
Is it Sasquatch?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It was a fine issue, I thought.
So, okay, I got to say one more thing. I can't believe this. Now it's going to be a 4-part podcast. I can't see your feed for the comics.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries.
Once I came back from the call, I kind of just didn't notice it, but...
Yeah, sure. Here.
It's another window, right?
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay. So now, unfortunately, you'll have to do a little bit of editing. So I just created a note. Okay?
No worries.
Okay. So now we can jump to number 100 if you want.
Yeah, let's so what did you
Oh, go ahead.
So what were your final thoughts, I guess, on this issue? Like, it was fine, kind of.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was fine. I guess it's like not exciting enough that I would rush out to read more, but it's definitely slightly better than I thought it would be. And it also made me realize back then, like comics were like, sorry, I should say superhero comics were selling a lot more. And the fact that a book like Alpha Flight lasted 130 issues, right? Nowadays, if they put it out, it might get a little bit of attention for a few months and then just sputter out and die after a year, right? So back then, everything was selling, everything was lasting 100 issues. So it was just reminded me of a different time in comics, like 35, years ago or whatever. So that's about it.
Yeah, it honestly, it kind of makes me interested in going back to read this from the start, because I think this is pretty. It definitely intrigued me enough to want to go back, because I feel like I would like these characters reading this issue, but again, I'm feeling a little bit lost because we're jumping in the middle. So even starting from this story arc at the beginning might have helped that. So
interesting. Okay.
Okay. So we can jump over to 100 now.
Sure.
Or yeah.
I just got to quickly point out that after John Byrne left with, I think it was issue 28, the book was taken over by Bill Mantlo, who we know from Spectacular Spider-Man, and the artist was Mike Mignola. So you can also check out those issues. Anyway, just a thought. Okay. On to 100.
Sweet. Okay. So we get a little bit of a recap of what happened last issue. The heroes that are left in Toronto, they're kind of teaming up and fighting against these aliens and holding them off, trying to save the city. We cut back over to this strange planet, and the people here are kind of confused as to what is going on with him, because he's kind of just snapped and has turned into a different person almost. And it turns out, I think we get this backstory here. I'm confused as to what happened exactly, but they found his body.
So, okay, I just have to say one quick thing. In the original story in Alpha Flight 12, the suit exploded or imploded, and it kind of just left this like smoking pile of nothing. So I think they're implying that what actually happened was he teleported away across space and they just found him, and that's where their version of the story picks up,
Gotcha. Okay, so that's what's going on, because they do, I feel like, talk about the fact that he was a Terran male named Hudson, barely alive.
We gave him what he needed to sustain his life functions. But then the next part is where it gets confusing, right?
Because I think they talk about the fact that he's part android at some point, right? Or is that what they do to him?
They do. So what they do is
to keep him alive. Gotcha.
Yeah, first they say he's misplaced in time as well as space. So I think he appeared to them in the past, I think. And then
thousands of years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Because we can see that now we're seeing flashbacks to Fantastic Four number 50 with Silver Surfer and Galactus and all this other stuff.
Right.
And then basically, like you said, they turn him into like a cyborg.
And in his programming as a cyborg, they've kind of done this fail-safe where if Galactus does ever end up finding them, they could press this button and it will revert him to this have to save the planet mode, essentially. So since Galactus has found them, he was activated and grabbed a bunch of these heroes to come over here with him to save them. So they're like, well, there's not really much we could do. Might as well punch Galactus while we're here. So they do start fighting Galactus. Nova tries to warn them, but her just comes up and zaps Nova. And then we see this kind of strange scene where Galactus goes to, he reaches his hand out and he tries to zap them, and it just like fizzles out. His power seems to be weakened for some reason. We cut back to Earth, and what's going on here? Oh, they come up with a plan where they've all gathered together and they're going to actually steal a ship and try and go to the headquarters of the consortium, so that way they can change their directive through paperwork. They're going to essentially go into their systems and cancel the report of having to take over Earth, which is confusing them because they're all businessmen and aliens, which honestly is hilarious. I love that. It's a
good idea. Definitely.
It's so much more interesting to break into an alien spaceship and having to change data than we keep cutting back to them and they're just punching more aliens for no reason, right?
Right.
It doesn't add anything if they were to have done the other thing. But again, they're blasting Galactus, and it's weird. They seem to be taking care of him really easily. And then Nova, we see, has been captured and is tied up. And these aliens of this planet are kind of talking about how they chose this planet because it's like an opposite planet where strong things are weak and weak things are strong. So Galactus is actually less powerful here, and the heroes are a little bit more powerful. So it's easier for our heroes to kind of overtake him.
Right.
Yeah, we cut back again. This is the scene where they're breaking in to change the schematics or whatever. Black Widow and Puck have a little exchange. I guess they've been kind of friends before. That's kind of cool to see. The director is angry, and then as they're sneaking around, they go into the center of this ship, and it turns out that the thing that is powering their fleet is this planet that they've shrunken down, and they've built their ship around to power all of their vessels, which is kind of a fun idea. That's interesting.
Yeah,
but you can
sci-fi idea.
Yeah, you can kind of see too how this might start to unfurl and reveal how we're gonna tie this into the main story. Again, we cut back. Everybody's kind of punching each other. Galactus grabs
that's
Terran?
Guardian, which is Heather Hudson. We'll just call her Heather Hudson. Yeah.
Grabs Heather Hudson, and he's kind of it's not really he's still in his robot mode, so he's we have this wonderful line. I don't know if you recognize this at all, Mike, but logically the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. Kind
of embarrassing. I don't know, what do you think?
It was pretty goofy. When had Wrath of Khan even come out at this point?
8 years before this.
Okay, so
82. This is 91, so nine years. Yeah.
Wow, it's a little strange, a little on the nose.
And even if they published that today, everyone would get the reference. So it's not like, I don't know if Fabian Nicieza thought he was getting away with, no one will notice I steal this line. Right?
Yeah, it's also it would also feel a little bit different if it was coming from a sci-fi dork or something, you know what I mean?
Like Puck or somebody. You're right.
Right, like somebody who's actually making the reference, but
yes, but this just seems like he's just stealing it for this character.
Right. And he's also a robot at this point. He's not he's not even a human. He's not making a reference. It's very strange. Anyways, he's I don't really care, and then zaps Galactus. He drops her, so she's free now and safe, and it seems like they've defeated him. But he does at some point get up. Oh, no. Okay, this is where they start talking about how they can kind of merge these two stories and get rid of the consortium while also satiating Galactus's need to consume a planet. Let's lead Galactus over to the consortium, and he can just rip apart the ship and devour the planet that is powering these systems. So they start communicating with each other, and they're like, yeah, sounds good. Let's I can't remember how exactly they get the two to meet. They go to this like ship and they bring it to Toronto, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, right, and he's got to like power it for some reason. He's the only one that could do it, or the two of them are the only ones that could do it. So
Together.
he sacrifices himself so they can all survive and defeat Galactus. They show up with Galactus. He rips apart the ship and eats it, and then we're kind of left. We don't even really see it. Galactus just is looking at them through the window, and then we're left on this weird cliffhanger of like, well, we won anyways. Toronto's half destroyed. Let's see what happens next time. Like it's
well, you didn't even mention that James Hudson dies again, and because they don't really show it. Because
right, I assume that he didn't die.
Well, no,
but
he did die. Well, okay, comic book died, but he is dead. Like he's actually dead, but he comes back. But he's dead. Okay. Yeah. So it's like they don't really make it clear though. Because what they do is they show her like, Mac, he was being controlled. He brought us to save a planet. He sacrificed himself.
Right here,
stop the madness. He's dead. So she says he's dead. So he's actually dead. But like, what a weird ending. Like, is the story over? Is it not over? I have no idea. Right?
Yeah, I assumed that he just stayed behind on the other planet. I'm confused as to why he had to die. Because I thought he was just powering the...
I don't know.
The thing to teleport them, right? It's strange,
right?
But the ending is very weak. I think.
Yeah.
The climax is great, and we feel it kind of like ramping up. Like, okay, Galactus is gonna go and he's gonna save the day, and we're gonna have this battle between the Consortium and Galactus. That way, Galactus can, can devour that planet and yada yada yada. And then it just ends. Like we're rising up to this final action, and we're like, okay, there you go. What do you think? Like
I know.
It doesn't. It's not a great ending to the story. It feels like there's another part coming.
Well, that's the thing is like it's supposed to be the 100th issue, and I think it's the end of the story. Like if you jump ahead to the next issue, it does have a new title. It doesn't continue the story.
Right.
Like the action continues, but it's I don't know. It's a mess. It's kind of a mess, I think.
Yeah.
It just jumps to the next thing. I don't know. Yeah. So basically, despite everything you said about wanting to read more, this definitely makes me not want to read more, Interesting.
I get what you're saying. I think that it suffers from being one of those 100th issue specials.
Yeah.
And it suffers for that. I have a feeling because I like the little bits. I like the ideas. These moments with these individual characters are great. The story itself is like an awful way to end this arc, I think. So I have hope that it's not like this. It's not quite like this all the time.
The rest of the series?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just have to quickly reiterate, in the next issue, they actually do have the funeral for James Hudson, so he's definitely dead. But he comes back later. So
okay, right. Yeah, of course.
He gets better. Yeah.
I also love that presumably they don't have the body twice for him. Like, this is the second funeral they're going to have for him where it's just like nothing.
An empty. Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange. I don't know why they would have him be the one to sacrifice himself.
Again, I know.
Like, it should have been her. I
know, but I bet you that he was brought back knowing that they would kill him again. So that's probably why, I think. Okay. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I unfortunately I can't recommend reading this. I just don't think it's great. I don't think it's great.
I don't love it. It also doesn't feel like an Alpha Flight story at this point.
Yeah, that's another problem, right?
So, yeah, I'd like to see more of these characters, and hopefully the Alpha Flight stories are about them and not just these like big battles.
Sure.
But yeah, it was an interesting way to have a resolution to this battle, but they didn't show it to us enough. Like they didn't, do the and
also
they didn't do it right.
And we've also talked about Quasar's characterizations off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he even says anything in this issue. He's kind of just here.
Yeah, I'm skipping through again. You're right. I don't even know if he has any dialogue
there.
Yeah. Oh, he has like one line.
Yeah.
But anyone could have said that line. It's pretty lame.
Staggering. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So, I don't know. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But
oh boy. Well, I guess it's on to Thor 437. Yeah. At least this one's a lot more fun. So we should say that at this point in Thor history, I don't really know the circumstances, but the actual Thor that we all know and love was replaced by Eric Masterson, like a teenager who becomes Thor.
Right. I believe he's been banished by Odin again at this point, and the gods have chosen a new person to take on the mantle of Thor.
Right.
Which is, I think, it's an interesting idea, but
yeah, it's not bad. I mean, we should also point out that around this time in Marvel history, if you remember, Captain America was replaced by Johnny Walker. Iron Man was replaced. Sorry, Tony Stark was replaced by James Rhodes. Mm-hmm. The Fantastic Four, half the team was replaced by Crystal and Ms. Marvel. So this trope was going on everywhere. Like they were just replacing all the characters with new ones, Mm-hmm. And then eventually all the originals came back. But it's just kind of like, something everybody was doing at the time.
I almost wish too that if they're gonna go this route, make it very different from Donald Blake. Make it.
That's a good point.
He looks like Donald Blake. You know what I mean? Like
That's the problem. You're right.
He looks like his alter ego, and he looks like Thor himself. Like it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work to be like a twist on the Thor character or anything different. So when I'm reading this, I'm just kind of feeling like I would rather be reading about Thor than this guy. But
you're right. What's the point? Of changing?
I also feel like if this was Donald Blake, the story wouldn't have changed. Like it wouldn't be different.
Good point.
Yeah. But maybe I'm wrong, and that's something different throughout this run. Like there are more interesting things, but I've read 2 issues of this version of Thor, and I feel like it could have been either.
Yeah,
version.
I agree. Okay, so first we got this cover. Let's talk about the cover. It is well done. So the art is by Ron Frenz, who we know from Amazing Spider-Man, and it's very well drawn. But it's this run by Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz was a callback to 60s Marvel by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And so unfortunately there's all this text, right? Kind of covering up the art. And I feel like if they would have junked all of that extra text, it would have made the cover a lot better. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot. Hey gang, look who's in this issue. Hercules. It's like
Yeah, verily. Like it is funny and it does fit the style of the 60s, but objectively it's kind of just too busy, right?
A little bit, yeah. I think you could have made these 2 a little bit bigger, like more of the focus. Mm-hmm. I like the little bubble with Enchantress. I like this little Hercules up at the top. Like it's fun, but it's a bit much.
Yeah, I agree.
But the art itself is really fun. I love the color. The colors are great. I love the pink clouds in the sky. Like it feels like a sunset. It's cool.
It's good art. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ron Frenz for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we open up. Okay. I already know what I don't like about this issue, but I'll tell you later. So we open up with Hercules, who's played for laughs as usual, who's just punching out Thor. And I can't remember why. Why is he?
He's supposed to be training this new version of Thor.
Okay.
They're fighting each other, and we're supposed to believe at the start, oh my, what's going on? They're fighting each other. And then at the last minute, he changes into his alter ego, which is
Eric Masterson. And so he actually risks his life, because if Hercules wouldn't have stopped at that moment, he would have killed him with the force of his blow, right? So it's kind of cool. And this art's fine. As we said, the art looks really good. Like Thor, like look at the body language of Hercules falling back, and then Eric Masterson in his face. This is classic Marvel.
I even love, like, he looks like he's in motion without having like the motion lines. Like he's gesturing.
Good
like
point.
what the, like it's, yeah, I really like it. I love this like giant finger like wagging in his face. Like I think that, it rides that balance of like realistic characters and then cartoony. Like it's it knows when to do what. It's great.
Well, and it's also textbook influenced by John Buscema's book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, right?
Okay.
Like this is exactly classic Marvel. A little bit of Kirby, a little bit of Buscema, you know. So yeah, like Ron Frenz is a classic Marvel artist, I think. But anyway, so and then Eric Masterson's kind of pissed off at him because he didn't like the way he was fighting. So he kind of walks away. And then we cut over to Enchantress, who's got this scheme going where she's disguising herself as Lena Moran. And what is she? Is she a landlord? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, but then we cut over to Hercules talking to Circe, who is an Eternal, and they're kind of going back and forth. And then
she tells Hercules that if she wants to get Thor to, you know, battle with him again, he's got to talk to Quasar, because Quasar is humble and like a good guy, and he wants everybody to get along, or some BS or something to get Quasar involved. Yeah. Right.
So then we cut over to Eric Masterson meeting up with Lena, who is what is it? She's
a room, like a friend of a roommate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which is kind of cool that she's like, you know, using her powers to kind of tempt him or get him to do whatever she wants, you know. And then she's just about to kiss him. And then this is Jackie. I wasn't reading Thor at this time. I don't know who these characters are.
Yeah,
but it's
I'm not
just
sure.
A little bit of soap opera melodrama. She kind of stumbles in on them, and he's kind of embarrassed. He's trying to get out of it, but then Lena walks away, and then he walks away, and he sticks her with, what is it that he gives her?
Some sort of file for work. I don't know I can't remember what he does for a living, but she's been trying to contact him, and he's been missing. Of course, being Thor and saving the day, but she assumes that he's just been sleeping around with Enchantress, his new girlfriend, apparently. And obviously they have some sort of budding romance going on, and she's a little jealous here. So a fun little moment.
Yeah, it's fine.
Even without knowing the characters, like I think it's good. Okay. But yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. My computer kind of glitched out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then we cut over to now what's his name? Hercules is touching base with Quasar. And
in the most
you can jump in.
Yeah, the most ridiculous subplot. So he goes up to Quasar and he quickly destroys his Avengers card.
Right.
And says, listen, I had to do this because something's going on. This alien invasion has happened, and that's why I've called you. And this alien has taken over Thor's mind. So I need your help. I need you to go and fight Thor. Quasar's like, well, that's weird. Why don't I call the Avengers? And it's like this funny bit of him saying, like, they're compromised. We can't do it. In the invasion. Like, he's just trying to goat him into going and fighting Thor.
Right. Which is,
a little strange.
Great. Yeah. Well, it's also like a cliche of Marvel of just forcing heroes to fight each other, right? Yeah. Then we cut over to. So now this is Eric Masterson, and who is this in the hospital? I don't even know.
I don't know who this is, but it's somebody in his like cast of characters.
Austin. Yeah.
And she's
so she's connected to who Enchantress was pretending to be.
Okay, interesting, right? So we also find out that the only person that can save her from this coma is Dr. Donald Blake.
Right, who's disappeared from the comic book because he's been exiled, right? Because Thor's been exiled. Right. Then Eric Masterson leaves, and he's being followed by somebody.
I believe Quasar.
Oh, it's Quasar. Oh, I should have known that. Okay. And then, but then he disappears because he turns into Thor. Then he flies away, confronts Hercules. Then Enchantress is watching from behind like a broken building. And then Quasar is trying to figure out what's going on. He's like, alien, sorcerers, mind control. It doesn't add up. I should just flash over to Avengers Mansion. But then Enchantress comes in, is like, I got a better idea. So then she kisses him, and that totally puts him under her spell, right? Mm-hmm. So then Quasar flies away and smashes into Thor, and they start fighting. So of course they do point out that they're in an abandoned part of the city, so they're able to destroy all these buildings. So it's just typical, Marvel fisticuffs, back and forth fighting for a couple pages. Yeah,
it's pretty fun, but then I think he ends up just punching Quasar. Oh no, that's not true. We learn about this new ability of the quantum bands. They actually have a failsafe where if Quasar's mind gets taken over, they will automatically connect to his brain and zap him awake.
Which is what it does, yeah. Which is what they do.
Which is what happens. And they find out that Enchantress has been controlling him. They look over, and Hercules is now fighting a big stone golem version of himself that Enchantress has made. And when they go and try and confront her, she just poofs away.
Right.
You get this fun little like epilogue of wrapping up the story.
And this is where Hercules reveals that he was just training. He was just trying to train him the whole time, train Thor the whole time. And so as a gag to get back at him, they tie him up, and I assume that's a quantum bow, and just leave him on the top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
So, this is Tom DeFalco, and, we've read his Amazing Spider-Man. I've also read his Spider-Girl and his Fantastic Four. He's always enjoyable. His dialogue's actually pretty good. It's really funny, but it's almost like it's the best it can be is a second-rate Stan Lee. That's what I feel like. I feel like all of his stuff is like that. Like, it's always good. It's always entertaining, but it never tries to be more than just a recreation of the comics that he grew up reading as a kid. And I think that's what holds him back. I think it's entertaining. Like, if you just want to read like a classic Marvel comic, this is it. But it can just never be anything more than that.
Yeah, it does feel like a Saturday morning cartoon. A bit.
Yes.
Like it has that sort of storyline, this misunderstanding mix-up storyline. I think for the most part, it really works for that. I think it's a fun idea to have. It's very annoying when characters have misunderstandings and they fight each other immediately.
Yeah, I hate
it. But Hercules kind of being behind this misunderstanding and that being a plot point that they misunderstand each other, this works for me. The misunderstanding and them fighting each other.
Okay.
I think what is a little bit strange, though, is that we have this whole setup of Hercules convincing Quasar to go and fight Thor, and he's like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to track him down. I'm going to figure out what's going on. And then Enchantress just like takes over Quasar anyways. It's strange that it happens this way, I feel like.
Sure. Well, the other thing too is I'm thinking like we talked about the art. Like I actually really like the art in this issue. It's good classic fun. The dialogue's fun. Everything's fun. But if you know you want to have action and you have to have action, why fall back on this trope of like, okay, well, we got to figure out a way for the heroes to fight? I mean, there's other classic tropes. Like they could just stop some supervillains, or there's somebody who's got a plot going on that they have to solve the mystery and deal with that. But just to have an excuse to have fisticuffs for 22 pages is just kind of, I don't hate it, but it's kind of just lame, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they could have changed this to make it work a little bit better, but I like the idea of this kind of one-off comedic storyline. It's fun, but it doesn't. I feel like it's not clever enough for it to be memorable.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Like it's a great idea. It's like a little nugget of a story, but it just wasn't pushed far enough for it to be like this was really fun. I'm going to recommend this to somebody to read this comic.
Right.
It's fine. I almost wish that maybe like Hercules was pretending to be Enchantress or something, like leading Thor on this whole thing, and like maybe we don't know that he's like, we don't see Enchantress, right? Like he's not dressed up as her, but it's kind of I think Enchantress is changing his mind and he's playing both sides or something, so we can get these funny moments, and then the reveal that it's just been him this whole time. I don't know, something.
That's what I mean. We need something extra, but it's not. Yeah. It's just this like mid-level of quality that it never tries to go above. And I think that's, again, like I read a lot of his Spider-Girl and it's very entertaining, but it's not special. You know, there's nothing extra memorable about it. It's just kind of like a decent, fun Marvel comic. That's it. Yeah,
I agree.
So yeah, I mean, if that's what you're looking for, then this is fine. But there's nothing beyond that you'll get from this issue, right?
Yeah, it's fun. It's a really cute story. I think that like kids would actually really love this issue a lot.
Sure, yeah.
Again, it does feel like that sort of like Saturday morning cartoon storyline where nothing really matters between like the beginning and the end of this. Like nothing changes.
Sure.
But it's a way to kind of get to know these characters, and like seeing this side of Hercules is great too. It's really fun. So
yeah, so that's the thing. I remember I actually bought this whole run of Thor, and then I read a few issues, and I'm just like, I'm good. I just sold them all, unfortunately. So there you go. Tread carefully, but I definitely think this is much more fun than the Alpha Flight stuff. I would much rather read this.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Yep. So guess what? That wraps up our review of these two Quasar Quas-Overs. And in the next episode of Quasar QUA-NOLOGY, we're going to be following up on the conclusion of the Quasar Gets Knocked Up storyline with special guest Ricky Lima. So be sure to join us for that. And be sure to join us for every episode of Taped Crusaders and Slam. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, you can also find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. You can also find all of the video format versions of our podcasts on our YouTube channel. So go check us out there. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about the stuff we're talking about too. So
that's
until
right.
next time.
See you later.